It's time I answered some questions. A few weeks ago, I made a video comparing the Samsung Z or Z Fold 8 against the iPad mini 7, and I had a fair few comments from people saying, why have you done this? It makes no sense. You can't compare a tablet against a phone because it's not a fair comparison. I kind of get that. However, that video has done 173,000 views, 4,000 likes, and 795 comments. So it's been fairly popular. And the reason it has worked in terms of a piece of content is because people were asking for it. That's the reason I published that video. All these videos are for a reason. It's not just plucked out of thin air. We do it for a reason. And I knew this comparison meant something to people. However, we are now, where are we? The 19th of August. And there's a very good chance, I have no insider information, obviously. I don't work for Apple. I've got I know as much as you basically. But the rumors are very, very strong that within the next 4 or 5 weeks, we might be seeing an iPhone that compares, or competes rather, against this. It will be this form factor, apparently. It might be called the iPhone Ultra, and it's Apple's first ever foldable. And that is what this video is about, because we're getting closer and closer to that date, and lots of people are asking questions, because all of the content I've made about the Z Fold 8 has been dominated by questions about the iPhone Ultra. It really has, which is, I've never seen that before. A product that may not even exist is dominating my comment section. So I thought in this video, let's answer some of your questions and some of the questions that are floating around the ether about the iPhone Ultra. This is the elephant in the room with that. It really is, and we'll get to that during this process. Firstly, this video, very quickly, is brought to you by Paperlike. Now, Paperlike is a screen protector for any iPad, the iPad mini, Pro, regular, Air, whatever you like, any size, and it does two things. It protects that very expensive display, which is very important, but also it makes it feel like paper, hence the name. Very hard to get this across on a video, but if you take your Apple Pencil and write across or draw, do whatever you do with your Apple Pencil on your iPad on Paperlike, it feels amazing. It sounds like paper. It transforms that slippery glass surface into something very, I've used this for years. Every iPad I have in this studio has a Paperlike on it, but even now, it still feels great. It's so much better. If you draw, if you write, if you illustrate, whatever you do, you need a Paperlike. You really do. And it's very, very easy to apply. If I can do it, trust me, you can. There's a link down in the description. Go and click it. And yeah, let's get into these questions. Why this desk always, it's got a life of its own when I'm recording. Okay, I've not read any of these questions yet, so it's going to be very much an off-the-cuff video. Anything could happen. These are a mixture of questions that you've asked in the comments, but also just the kind of stuff that's happening in Reddit threads at the moment about the iPhone Ultra. The first one, Apple hasn't shown us this thing yet, and people are already arguing about it. Welcome to the internet. Why has this one got under everyone's skin? I think it's for several reasons. I think the main one is that it's been rumoured for years. We've had foldable phones from Samsung, Honor, Oppo, and many more for a long time now. Nearly 10 years, I think, in terms of when they first started. Has it been that long? I don't know. It's been long enough for Apple to have been out of the game for a significant amount of time. They've kind of sat on the sidelines and just watched all of this unfold. Brilliant. I didn't even think about that. For some reason, they've picked 2026, potentially, if it's true, to jump in and show the world what they can do when it comes to a phone that does that. So I think that alone it's just the anticipation. It's the build-up. It's kind of, are they going to do it now? No. Are they doing it now? No. Oh, they're now doing it, are they? Why? What is it about 2026 is prompting them to jump in? So it's the classic Apple late to the party, but potentially able to make a very big splash about a product that just hasn't really caught on. Foldables aren't as popular as regular phones. No matter how good the Z Fold 8 is, most people are going to buy a regular phone because it's safer, it's cheaper, and it just makes more sense for most people. So no brand has cracked this in terms of making it a real everyday device that lots and lots and lots of people will choose over a regular phone. I think the reason the theoretical iPhone Ultra has got under everyone's skin is because it really is make or break, not for Apple overall, but in terms of this category. Will it work? Will it sell? Will it finally make it make sense for more people? I think that's why, and that's why people are arguing over it, because some people think it will. I don't know how you could think that, because we've not seen it and it may not exist, but a lot of other people don't think it will. So it's the classic Apple fanboy versus Apple not a fanboy, which is fantastic for this channel. Next question. Over on the Mac Rumors forums, someone called it a watered-down iPad mini OLED crammed into a foldable format for something twice the price. Harsh or fair? Well, there's several problems here, aren't there? Because one, we don't have an iPad mini OLED. That doesn't exist. So that product can't be compared with a product that also doesn't exist. That's problematic. I kind of understand what they're saying. If it is basically an upgraded iPad mini that folds in two but costs twice as much and is a phone as well, I think that's fair. Because this isn't a phone, it doesn't fold, and it doesn't have an OLED screen. So classic Mac Rumors chat going on there. Anyway, next question. One of your commenters, i.e. one of you guys, made the opposite case. The iPad mini costs having it plus your phone. So the Z Fold is not that expensive when it covers two devices. So this is the whole thing about, if you compare that against that, you need to factor in an iPhone, because this isn't a phone. Completely agree, makes total sense. I didn't really cover that in my comparison video, so a bit of a slip up from my point of view, but that is very fair, and I completely agree. I think you can get away with an iPad mini to a degree. You can text people on it via iMessage, but you do need a phone to make proper phone calls and have all the phone functionality. So that's a very fair point. I think the comparison between these two does fall apart when you start taking that into consideration. Completely agree. That's just one of those things that I kind of overlooked, I guess. Next question. If the only advantage is that it folds, why wouldn't I just buy an iPad mini for half the price? Is it really just about looking cool? Do people buy phones to look cool? I'm 45. I'm 46 this year. I'm a dad. I stopped trying to look cool when I was about 20, I think, because I realised it was very hard work. I don't think people buy phones to look cool, do they? If the only advantage is that it folds, yeah, get an iPad mini. However, that can't be the only advantage. What Apple is very, very good at is telling the story behind their products and giving you a reason to buy them based on the narrative. They're not just going to say, hey, look, we've made an iPhone that does that. Go and buy it. There's going to be, stuff they build into iOS in particular that makes the best use of that huge internal display. They'll do something that Samsung hasn't done, that Oppo hasn't done, Honor, etc., which makes you think, oh yeah, that's a really good use case, or that's a really good story. That's a really good reason for me not having a regular phone and having one of these instead. So I get what you're saying, but it isn't just going to be a foldable, and that be the only difference between that and an iPad mini. There will be something built around it if this thing exists, which is the story about the iPhone Ultra. Okay, this one isn't really a question, but it has pointed out that there are some fairly wild and wide guesses on the pricing for the iPhone Ultra. Some people are saying it might be £1,000, $1,000, and some people are saying it might be as much as £3,000, $3,000. I won't put anything on the line with this because it's very hard to guess pricing at the moment, partly because of the whole RAM crisis and everything being more expensive. But if I think about the pricing of the Z Fold 8, the Z Fold 8 Ultra, the other foldables that are out there, and where Apple would probably land, I think the iPhone Ultra at the base model, which will probably be 256 gig, I think that's going to land at about $1,899, $1,999. I think it's going to be below $2,000 for the base model, and then you start getting into the two and a half for the 512 1 terabyte, the big storage versions. I think that's where it's going to sit. It's going to be a very expensive phone. Right, next one. The recurring worry is the hinge, and that a folding phone wears out twice as fast as a normal one. After 2 weeks with the Fold 8, is that a real fear or an internet one? There's lots of internet fears out there. I've never had a problem with a foldable display or a foldable hinge. However, a big caveat here, and you probably know what I'm going to say here, I'm a reviewer and I do switch phones quite regularly. So although I'm using the Fold 8 as my main phone every single day at the moment, within 6 months' time I'll be using something else, and this will become a secondary device and all that sort of thing, for comparisons. So I'm not using it solidly for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and I've never done that with a foldable. Hands up, that is part of my job. That is I guess the downside of being a reviewer, because we're always switching phones. But that said, I do get some of the older foldables out of the drawer over there, which have been used a lot, and they still work fine. And also, looking at the comments, I think that 2 years ago there was definitely a fairly significant number of people who had issues with previous foldables in terms of the hinge after a while creaking or just not working as well as it should do. They seem to have got less. They're not appearing quite as much in the comments section. So that isn't scientific research, but I don't see as many people talking about the hinge. And also, I think part of the reason Apple has waited this long, if they have, to release their own foldable phone is because they know the hinge is a weak point. It's why that kind of phone just works. It doesn't fold. There's no moving parts. It's just a solid piece of aluminium and glass. This isn't. It does that. And it will only do that for so long before something happens. Equally, if you get sand in there, Mr. Adam Butcher, bad days, and you've ruined your foldable. So I don't think it's a big deal these days, but I think Apple has been waiting to perfect it as much as they can. Reports say that the iPhone Ultra is so thin that there may be no room for Face ID or 256 gig of storage at the base price. I don't quite understand the storage there. I don't think that. How thick is storage? Let's ignore that. In terms of Face ID, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't have Face ID. I think that might be one of the things that the first version of the iPhone Ultra doesn't have. If Apple is going for a very thin design, that's definitely going to be something I think that would be missing. We do have facial recognition on the Z Fold 8 and the Z Fold 8 Ultra, and also a power button with a fingerprint reader, and it is thin, to be fair. So, I mean, is Apple going to go thinner than that? Again, it might be because Face ID needs more depth. It's quite a significant sensor, I know that much. Would that stop me buying it? No. Apple made the iPhone mini and it flopped. Hang on. Whoa. Where is it? It's over there. Let me go and get it. This is the iPhone 13 mini. It didn't flop. I'm not having that. Sorry, it's just not happening. It was a huge hit with a lot of people. I've got quite a significant portion of my audience who love this thing. And whenever I get it out, I get comments saying, oh, I wish it was still here. I wish we had an iPhone 17 mini. I'm not having that. I'm really not very pleased about that in a very British way. Apple made the iPhone Air and it flopped. No, it didn't. It hasn't flopped. I've been using this as my main iPhone since January, and it's brilliant. I really love it. It's great. Why does a small, thin, expensive niche phone land this time? Again, referring to the iPhone Ultra, if it is small and thin and expensive. Well, it's not either of these, is it? And it may not land. It may not work. It may be one of those things that Apple has decided to put out, a little bit like the iPhone Air, as a bit of a test. Possibly a bit of a, we need to do this. We need to get this out and see how people react to it. Not going to be our big seller, but let's see how it does. It might be that, possibly. We just don't know. I can't answer that question. Next question. Nobody has leaked Apple Pencil support, and your viewers keep raising it. You do. You keep asking about this, because the one big difference between these two is this, the fact that the iPad mini has a stylus. I know Apple hate calling it that, but it has the Apple Pencil. What does this tell you about what Apple thinks this phone, or who this phone is for? If there's no Apple Pencil support on the iPhone Ultra, there won't be. It's not going to happen, is it? It's just not going to happen. And I don't think it matters. We might see it in the future if it sells well, and if something then happens to this and it starts to disappear, please, Apple, no. I don't think it matters. And in terms of who that makes the iPhone Ultra for, it's for anyone who wants a foldable iPhone. I don't think those people will be thinking about the Apple Pencil support, personally. Last question. Does the iPad mini survive this? Oh, I didn't want to read that. I knew it was coming. Yes, I think it does, because it's a very different product. I think the comparison between this and this proved that it's a tricky comparison, and there's lots of things going for this. It does need an update. It needs a ProMotion display. It needs a mini Magic Keyboard. It needs Face ID. It needs to be brought into the the 2026 era. And I think if Apple does that, which I think they might do later this year, fingers crossed, it survives. It survives whatever happens at the iPhone event. Honestly, don't worry. If you are, like me, a big iPad mini fanboy or fangirl, you'll be absolutely fine. Don't worry, it's sticking around. I think it is. Guys, it's over to you now. You must still have questions. That can't be all of them. I'm sure there's more things you have swirling around your head about the iPhone Ultra. So get involved down there. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done already. And, well, I'll see you down there.